Hot takes. We've all got them, and I'm certainly no exception to that. And today, we're going to be going over my most insufferable video game takes. Hope you're ready for the ride. Without further ado, let's start without diving completely into the deep end. I think 100-hour games are too long. I want to differentiate here. I'm fine with video games having 100+ hours of content, and there are plenty of games I've played for over 100 hours. But if a game has 100+ hours of like vital story, chronological content that you have to do, I just always think that makes the game worse. I think like the Persona games would be way better if they were like 50 hours long, 40 hours long, probably cut out some of the filler in there, and it's a much better game. I won't say it's impossible to tell an 100-hour story well, but it's definitely significantly harder than telling, a 2-hour or a 5-hour or a 15-hour or a 30-hour story well. Like I was saying, I just don't think games utilize it how it should have to be utilized. And a lot of the times it just feels like these games are stretched out so that they can provide more content, basically, rather than it being like we're making an 100-hour game should feel like you're writing like a founding document of a country or something. Like, you really gotta put a lot of thought into that, and I just don't think. I think it's more just a marketing tactic. And yeah, like I said, there are games I've engaged with for 100+ hours, like Fire Emblem, Pokemon, Minecraft, Skyrim, a bunch of 4X games like Stellaris or City Skylines, Sims, like tons of games I have played for 100+ hours and will probably play for 100+ hours more. None of those games are structured around giving you an 100-hour long story that you have to follow. And that's why with a game like Persona, I can get like 50, maybe 60 hours into it, and then I'm like, all right, I've kind of had enough of this. I get what this game is about, and it's not really going to give me anything new, so I kind of check out at that point. All right, moving on to more of a heavy topic. I really don't like games like Uncharted, and I say that as someone who's never played them and just won't, unless I decide to make a video about them, which is possible. I wouldn't make a video without at least playing them, because then what am I going to talk about the whole time? But for a video like this, it's fine if I haven't played them. And I do have reasons for not wanting to. I feel like they're like the Marvel movies of games, basically, where, I've tried to word this before and I was like, oh, it's the realism that's the issue, or oh, it's all this focus on the story that's the issue. And that's, neither of those things are necessarily true. I am someone who favors like whimsy and fun design over like gritty reality and stuff, but I can get into that mode with some pieces of media, and I like games with good stories when they're told in interesting ways that don't take 100 hours and aren't actually that great of stories, probably. But I think ultimately it's about, with games like Uncharted or The Last of Us or even like Spider-Man, God of War, really any big Sony franchise at this point, it's about the spectacle of the game and about here's what like the next gen can do. Look at Kratos' little tiny hairs on his upper lip or whatever. And it's like, great, dude. That's awesome. I'm glad that your QuickTime event looks really nice. And reference there, I think it's a combination of the general gameplay styles of these, like even Rockstar games, I can get behind them, but they're kind of pushing it with how engaged I can be. And they really are a lot about spectacle too. Now, obviously, they're more of like sandbox games and less directed than like, the tiny, skinny hallways of every single movie game. So I can get joy out of like GTA and Red Dead, although not as much as a lot of people. I don't love those games. But yeah, with games like Uncharted, I don't know. They just really don't seem like my thing. They're not at all what I want from games. The only time I ever watch Marvel movies is if I'm going with people, because I wouldn't choose to watch a Marvel movie. No hate to superheroes. Superheroes are cool, but you know how it is. All right, we're going back-to-back bangers here. I don't think esports are real sports. Or I do, maybe. I don't care if they're real sports. I just don't like them. I just don't like esports, I think, is the thing. For a few reasons. One, I just think a lot of these games have super toxic cultures. I'm not gonna get into each fan base breakdown. When I say competitive games have toxic cultures, you know what games pop in your head, and I'm not wrong. Two is football isn't art. I like football, but it's not art, it's a sport, and I don't want video games to be sports and not art. I want them to be art. I'm not someone who's like I can get competitive, I guess, if I'm like playing a game with someone. I'm not going to be like, oh, I'm a pacifist. You can just win. But I'm not someone who's like overall driven by competition really at all. And I don't like when video games are designed around that. That being said, I'm not saying I hate all these games like FPSs and MOBAs or whatever, like League and stuff are. Those really are not my thing. They never have been. But I like some fighting games. Tekken's fun. Smash Bros, if you count, it's fun. Talk about a bad community, though. I just don't like when the goal of a game is as a vessel for competition between people. I would rather if I'm engaging with a game, it's because I want to engage with the game, not other people. Maybe I'm just a little antisocial. I don't know. But I just think esports just have a really generally bad, uninviting, unfun culture that make games that could otherwise be fun seem a lot less fun because now they're like jobs. I think it takes games farther away from being art. It gives games a harder claim to being art. They're treated like sports. And I just think it's this weird... I don't know, like the whole argument about calling them esports and everything just is such a weird, like, fragile masculinity thing to me. I feel like if you want to be good at a game, just be good at a game. You don't have to call it a sport all of a sudden. Like, it's fine, we get it. You're not on the football team, you play League of Legends, but like, I don't know, just play League of Legends. Don't worry about it so much. All right, the next one. This one's gonna get a whole new subsect of people angry. The GameCube hype is undeserved. I like the GameCube, but I like it the third most in that generation out of 4 consoles. It has some great games, but its exclusives that are worth playing are few and far between. Like, I can count them probably on at least all my hands and toes. Whereas with a PS2, if I enlisted like an entire college class of people, it wouldn't be enough hands and toes altogether to count all the games. All the good, worthwhile, exclusive games even. I'll add a bunch of qualifiers to it. Why not? Specs-wise, it's not particularly impressive. Technology-wise, which isn't a thing I usually care about, but, you know, it doesn't do anything that great. It uses a bad disc format that are just, you know, inconvenient for being not CDs or whatever. It didn't have any, like, really interesting Nintendo innovations. It was kind of just like them trying and failing to compete. And also, if you do like the GameCube, me saying this is helping you, because obviously, as we all know, GameCube prices are inflated because everyone's like, the GameCube is the most epic console, and here are the 10 games you have to buy before they're burned, or whatever. And then all of a sudden, like, Pikmin 2 is $157 for no reason. If enough people start believing that the GameCube hype is undeserved, the hype will go down, then the games will be cheaper. So you're welcome. Another one more pertaining to the retro side of things. I don't think Gen 7 should be considered retro. I think at that point, the classification becomes pretty useless. I think even Gen 6 being considered retro is like pushing it. And you know what? While I'm at it, Atari isn't retro. That's vintage. With anything else, any other like movement, let's just say like art, like regular art, it's not like, oh, modernism is anything that was 20 years ago to 50 years ago. That's the modernism art movement. And then every year it shifts a year up. Like, that doesn't make any sense. It's not a valuable way of communicating about any really any medium. I feel like we can have a retro name, but then that should be like the 80s and 90s period of gaming were retro. And then it became, I don't know, edgy. Edgy is the next period. And then like movie. Retro, edgy, vintage, it starts with Atari. That's the vintage movement. And then it's the retro movement. And then it's the edgy movement. And then it's a movie movement. Those are my pitches for the new classifications of games, because I don't think just saying retro is anything like 15 or 20 years ago is useful. Mario 64 in like 2010 feels different than Skyrim now. I don't know if those are exactly the same, like, distances in between, but you get what I'm saying. I feel like it's just kind of a gotcha of trying to make people feel old by moving the term retro up every 20 to 50. No one was saying that until it became weird that things that would be considered retro are kind of retro if you think about it. I think it's helpful for a medium to have a way of conceptualizing itself, and I don't think calling games retro because they were made 15 years ago is a valuable way to do that. Next one. I don't like DLC. You might be saying that's not a hot take at all. No one really likes DLC that much. I don't like DLC, and I don't like free updates either. One, I feel like free updates can just fundamentally change a game. Like, you know, everyone knows, like, the Minecraft you play today is not the Minecraft you played 10 years ago, or 15 years ago when it was retro Minecraft, or whatever. The whole feeling of the game's fundamentally changed, and like, I grew up with Minecraft. I still will play it to this day. I'm not saying like it's horrible now or anything, but it is a different game, and I feel like I would rather just have Minecraft and Minecraft 2 than have the one game I associate as being something just completely change. I think that's kind of weird. It's also antithetical to video games being art, once again, which, you know, is a big thing I push. I want them to be art. I think they are, and I think looking at them as such will make the medium better. Doing things like making games live services where they're not art, they're like a job or just a Ponzi scheme. Yeah, whatever, great. We get new Fortnite content every week. We get new Minecraft content every week. We get new Animal Crossing New Horizons content for a year and a half. Like, just release the game finished. Then you don't have to do that. And that's another thing, is I think a lot of the companies that employ this practice, it's not like we're getting extra from them. They're just trying to fit in with the wave of games like Fortnite and stuff, where this business model has worked for them. So they're like, let's just not finish the game, and then we'll release everything slowly over time. And obviously, I don't think that is that radical of the thought. I know people have said that before, but I don't know. It was always weird to me when people are like, oh, I wish Animal Crossing New Horizons kept getting updates for longer. It's like, no, I want it to not get updates. I want to pay for a game once, and then that's the game, and I want it to be conceptualized as like a completed thing. Because it's hard to argue that games are art or even like consistent objects when they're constantly evolving. And I know what you might be saying, but aren't we ultimately like live service games, constantly in flux, yet trying to define ourselves as this rigid object that we can never truly be? I think Diamond and Pearl are the worst Pokemon games. I don't think that is that hot of a take. I mean, it might be. I've said it a few times before on this channel, but I think after all the the mud we just dredged through, I would like to end on a little bit of a lighter note. The games are just super slow, like physically. Like, you walk slow, the health bars are slow, and I know a lot of this was fixed in Platinum. I haven't played Platinum, so that would, change my perspective. In the last few years, we've realized Pokemon games don't always come out swinging. They don't always come out showing their best. It's not like that's a super new thing. I'm pretty sure, genuinely, I don't think Diamond and Pearl are really fun to play. They're super unbalanced. There's, one fire type you can catch in the whole region, and it's, Ponyta or some shit, and, that's wild. Like I said, the game just moves super slow. It's the first, kind of really off-the-rails Pokemon team. Before Team Rocket are just, some backyard hooligans or something. The teams in Gen 3 are a little weird, but at least they're consistent. They like land, or they like ocean. That's at least something. And then Team Plasma is just oh, we're gonna recreate the universe or something. That's chill out. Calm down. Let me know what your hot takes are. And yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe, join the Patreon, and I hope you have a good day.